God put us here for a reason. Now, the second piece I'm going to do, bear with me on this piece. This piece is called youth. Y'all ready to hear the piece, youth? The motivation behind youth is, I think no matter how old you are youth because everything starts with the youth. And what I mean by that is the way we think, the way we develop started off when we was a youth. And the youth need to realize how much power they have. And they need to use it in a more positive fashion because if you think about it, everything revolves around the youth. The entertainment industry, they mainly want to entertain the youth. Community leaders, activists, and mentors, they mainly want to get at the youth. Spirituality, they mainly want to save the youth. The HIV field, they mainly want to test the youth. Everything revolves around the youth. It all depends on what the youth is supporting. And the older generation needs to motivate the youth a little bit more because it may be hard because they feel like 99.9% of all youth is negative to hear them complain. It's unchangeable. They don't want to have nothing to do with the youth. They're so immature, so their future don't exist. Well, let me break it down like this. An older wise man told me that maybe if the younger generation is failing, it's probably because we're failing them as an older generation. And as far as immaturity, don't put that off on the youth because I know some old dogs where you can't teach them new tricks. So marinate on that and let me break this down real quick. Rebellion. You hear that a lot. The youth is so rebellious. Why are they so rebellious? For one, the youth been rebellious for years. And I don't think the youth is always rebellious in a negative fashion. It's just that the youth is so sick and tired of all these lies. See, if you can remember, the youth been lied to for years, decades, generations, and nobody apologized. So now the youth of today's time, they just see the angel in disguise. They see the insincerity in their eyes. Because it's going to take more than just some corny political words to trick us. If you want the youth to start responding, then you better start showing some action because that's what uplifts us. But there is negative youth. I will admit that. But all youth is not negative. We need positive youth to motivate negative youth. Because the negative youth, they're too simple-minded. And I was there at one time. They leave nothing for the future generation. They like dead weight. All they do is settle. But see, the positive youth, they fight for their freedom. They fight for truth. They fight for their future. We call them the youthful rebels. This is the kind of youth that beat down any challenges that the enemy throw at them. And they rise above many levels. If you still don't understand what the youth fought for or how important it is, let me keep going so you can stay on the youthful poetic schedule. See, the youth, they fought and survived through the riots and the racism in the 60s, even that unnecessary Vietnam War in the 70s, even the HIV and crack epidemic in the 90s and the 80s, when all they thought the youth was good for at that time was selling drugs, catching HIV, killing each other, and making crack babies. But most of the youth survived that HIV and crack epidemic, teaching the youth of today's time, giving them their testimonies. So don't diss the youth of the past, because it's what made you, and it's definitely what made me. Patience. You hear that too. People don't have patience with the youth. But what people don't realize, another meaning for youth means growth. And all of us got to grow, no matter how old we are. So what if everybody give up on us doing our growing spurt? See, we got to plant that seed because that's what we need. And nothing grows in one day, so we got to continue to feed it. Even though as a youth, I understand our hormones is raging. We want to have sex. And with parents, that may show some concern because we put pressure on each other to have sex, but don't shelter us because it's going to catch up with us one day and hey, we got to learn. And don't judge us neither because you probably had the same horny hormones when you was our age. Only difference is that it's our turn. And every youth is not thinking about sexual penetration. I know some youth that's trying to be celibate, whether it's spiritual purposes or moral purposes. They're trying to fight the sexual temptation. Because the youth have to understand the difference between lust and love. The youth have to understand that they have to be their own natural high. They can't mess up their mental development with alcohol and other illegal drugs. The youth have to understand they got to grow up one day. They can't live life every day like it's Friday night at the club. But guess what? It's okay. You can change. Because even as a young youth, Bill Clinton and Barack Obama took a hit of that weed. So what I'm saying is no matter what circumstances you in, you can still proceed because it don't matter what you did, how you did it, or when you done it. As a youth, a mistake is only a mistake when you don't learn from it. Rewind. It don't matter what you did, how you did it, or when you done it. Yes. A mistake is only a mistake when you don't learn from it. We all are the youth. Ain't it funny how we relate everything to the past no matter how old we get? What made us laugh? What made us mad? What made us sad? What music was popping at that time? Or what TV show put us down that memory path? Ain't it funny as a youth how we set trends and then we tease the trends in the past because we think our trend ain't going to never end, but then our trend begins to get old and another one begins and it happens again and again like the world will continue to spin. So all that, we wasn't like that when we was the youth. I don't understand the youth of today's time because we didn't have these problems. Listen, you older generation trying to get me to buy that, but that's just something that's not going to sell. Because every youth and their generation went through a time where they rebelled. It was just a different problem at that specific time, and it depends on how they prevail. Because you never lose that youthful pride, that youthful drive, that youthful strength, that child on the inside. Because youth just don't mean the age. It means a new stage, going through a new phase. This is the last thing I'm going to say when I'm done with the youthful poetic page. You may be a youth as a teenager. All you're trying to do is learn about life in this direction. All you need is a mentoring motivation. You may be the youth as a young adult as you're learning about independence in these crazy situations. You may be a youth in your middle ages. You're not old, but you're not young neither, so it's got to be about elevation. You may be a youth as an older generation. You lived your life. You did what you needed to do. So now you just want to embrace and teach a younger nation. See, the problem is the youth feel like you can't tell them nothing, and the older generation feel like they know everything. Like religion, everybody claims they got the right spiritual information. When really the only difference between the young youth and the old youth, so that's what I call it, is miscommunication. Thank y'all for listening to the piece.